The relations between the British Empire and the Zionist military gangs in Europe date back to 1915. During the 1910s, the Zionist leader and Anglophile Ze'ev Jabonski was pressing the British to agree to the formation of a Zionist volunteer corps that would serve under the aegis of the British Army. The British eventually agreed to set up the Zion Mule Corps, which assisted in the failed invasion of Gallipoli.
After David Lloyd George was made Prime Minister during the war, the British government agreed to the formation of the Jewish Legion, which participated in the invasion of Sinai and Palestine. The British defeated Ottoman forces in 1917 and occupied Palestine and Syria. The land remained under British military administration for the remainder of the war and beyond. Allied forces divided Ottoman territories into 3 occupied enemy territories, OET. One was the occupied enemy territory south, extending from the Egyptian border of Sinai into Palestine and Lebanon, and continuing as far north as Nablus and as far east as the River Jordan. Following its occupation, Palestine was governed by the Occupied Enemy Territory Administration. Although the initial migration of European Jews was not opposed by Palestinians due to the rise of anti-Semitism, Europe Jewish immigration to Palestine began to increase markedly, fueling resentment from Palestinian and other Arab nations. The British government, however, placed limitations on Jewish immigration to Palestine. These quotas were controversial, particularly in the latter years of British rule. Zionists, who once enjoyed the support of the British Empire, established terrorist gangs targeting both British and Palestinian armies. The terrorist group Haganah was formed on June 15, 1920, and was followed by the formation of other terrorist groups such as the Irgun and Stern Gang in 1936. The Stern Gang and Irgun initiated violent terrorist activities against the British Mandate. On November 6, 1944, Eliyahu Hakim and Eliyahu Bet Zuri, both members of the Stern Gang, assassinated Lord Moyne in Cairo. Moyne was the British Minister of State for the Middle East. The 3 main Zionist underground forces later united to form the so-called Jewish Resistance Movement and carried out several terrorist attacks. In 1946, British troops searched the Jewish Agency and confiscated large quantities of documents about the Zionist group's operations and links with other violent groups. The intelligence information was taken to the King David Hotel building in Jerusalem. The Zionists retaliated and directly targeted the British authorities. Irgun then blew up the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, the headquarters of the British administration, killing 92 people. The hotel was the site of the central offices of the British Mandatory Authorities of Palestine, the Secretariat of the Government of Palestine, and the headquarters of the British forces in Palestine and Transjordan.
This was the deadliest attack directed at the British during the Mandate era, and in the extended history of the Arab-Israeli conflict, remains as the bombing that caused the greatest number of casualties. The negative publicity resulting from the situation in Palestine caused the Mandate to become widely unpopular in Britain.
Later, in July 1947, Irgun kidnapped 2 British intelligence corps, Sergeant Clifford Martin and Sergeant Mervyn Pace. They murdered the hostages and subsequently hung their booby-trapped bodies in a grove near Netanyahu. This act was widely condemned in both Palestine and the United Kingdom. Following the hanging of the British sergeants by Irgun, the British announced their desire to terminate the Mandate and withdraw by May 1948.
United Nations members.
They notified the UN of their intent to terminate the Mandate not later than August 1, 1948. The Jewish leadership, led by future Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, seized the opportunity and declared independence on May 14th. This day is widely known by the surrounding countries as the Day of Misery.
أنا على الجبال قعدت بيجي 4-5 ليالي في الجبال. الناس زي الغنم اللي ما لهاش راعي. وبعدين قطعنا على جمالة وعلى دير عمار وعلى بيت له. قعدنا شوي بعدين طلقنا على عقب الجبل. بعد هجرة 50-60 سنة شو بدنا ترجعنا؟ احنا طلعنا اولاد صغار في 17 وهينا في 83. يعني عمرها ما صارت في تاريخ من يوم ما ربنا خلق الدنيا لليوم عمرها ما صارت الهجرة هذه.
Over 60 years after the crimes committed by underground terrorist groups against British Army personnel, the British government is now paying tribute to those who actively participated in the attacks or are recognizing their family members as close allies.
Menachem Begin, the leader of Irgun and the former prime minister of the Zionist regime. Zipi Livni, the daughter of Eitan Livni, the commander of the Irgun terrorist group who actively participated in the King David Hotel terrorist attack. Yitzhak Shamir, the former prime minister of the Zionist state and former officer of the Stern Gang, and during World War II held secret talks with German representatives at Beirut as he offered to open up a military front against the British in the Middle East in return for the expulsion of the Jewish population of Europe to Palestine. Shimon Peres, the current president of the Zionist regime and the old comrade of Ariel Sharon, commonly known as the Butcher, he had been knighted by Queen Elizabeth II. And the story continues.